stop me if you've heard this one. A Roman senator invites a Syrian freedman to dinner. And over the course of a single meal, the two men size each other up. The two men decide how much of their internal thought processes to share with the other, how much of their character to allow out. And somewhere in the middle of this exchange, they stop pretending with each other. They assess each other, holding a mirror up to one another. The senator holds his mirror up and says honestly, "You are not where you think you are. Everything that you've accomplished, all of your actions, the title, the patronage, the ludus, your own freedom, it hasn't moved you as far in Roman society as you would like to believe." And Asher, for his part, holds up his own mirror to the senator and says, "Rome is changing around you. You are aging, and you are clinging to this position and tradition while the Republic changes under the heel of younger men. A man like Caesar is accumulating power faster than your traditions can maintain. You are a man whose wife is outmaneuvering you, who is doing things that you are not aware of, building alliances where your tradition and loyalty cannot move. You are afraid of decay, of irrelevance, of things slipping beyond your control. The exchange, real truth, and saving one major misstep, one misstep that almost caused me to turn the show off. This episode hits its mark. In episode 1, I said that the House of Asher felt legitimate, that it had earned my confidence and respect in under 90 seconds. The show, featuring Asher's philosophies affecting the ludus, the gladiators with their own desires and resentments, the distrust of the new House of Asher. Every thread had weight because the show was doing what the original Spartacus did so well, making every character's position feel earned by the world they live in. The first scene of episode 2 continues with that brilliantly. The first thing that we see is that Caesar sends a notice to Asher.
Dominus, message has arrived from Rome.
And we establish his rank as a quaestor.
He stands a quaestor, does he not? A position of some note?
Now, we don't exactly know what this means, but it will come out here shortly. You see, Caesar has sent instructions to Asher to clear the rotting corpses from the Appian Way. Here we see the crucified rebels, the leftovers from Spartacus's failed rebellion. And as they point out, this is not a task befitting gladiators, and that's the point. Chorus says it plainly. This is a quaestor's responsibility and not theirs. Caesar isn't just delegating labor to Asher. He is reminding Asher and his house where they sit in the hierarchy. And watch how the men react. Creticus, who is going to be important later, offers his protest. We stand gladiators. We are not common slaves. And Asher kicks him to the ground. Of course, the other men laugh, and it's played for a bit of a joke. But then Chorus pulls Asher aside and validates what the slave has told him. That gladiators belong on the sands and not doing the grunt work of a politician. This show just accomplished world building through humiliation. Every character in this scene has a different relationship to the indignity. Asher endures it because he is engaging in political calculus. Crassus is his patron. Caesar is his patron's number one man. And he has no choice but to swallow what he's been given. Chorus, the doctore, the former freedman himself, endures it because he's pragmatic. But he's not blind to what is being done. Spartacus, the gladiator, whose entire identity now revolves around glory in the arena, can't endure it because his pride will not let him. Each response tells you who these men are without delving into exposition. And then they find Canicus, the former champion of the House of Vatiatus, a god of the arena, reduced to rotting meat on a cross. Chorus recants his opportunity to meet the man, a drunken, disagreeable fellow. And Asher has his own response to his death, a kindness to one forever haunted by his past transgressions. This is not just fan service. This is not just Easter eggs. This is the show telling you what happens to legends within this world. The greatest gladiator that Capua ever produced is now a chore to be loaded onto a wagon. And if the House of Asher fails to find rank, fails to find prestige, this is where they will all end up. And I want you to remember this scene because what happens later at dinner is going to hit differently once you understand what Asher really endured this afternoon. Yes, he spent all day pulling dead men off of a cross, and he's reminded that he's a pawn. But he doesn't internalize it until he walks into the senator's villa and hears from a man being kind to him, from a man who's assessing him with equal skill, that he's even further behind than his chores would suggest. Now, while the gladiators are all working upon the Appian Way, and Asher is managing the politics of the people above him and around him, the show takes us to the lowest level of the house. Hilara, a house slave, Asher's woman, the woman who manages the entire ludus, visits Achilles in her cell. She finds her scratching an image of Apidamoc, a god of war native to her culture. There's a brief exchange about faith, and Achilles informs Hilara that her god will not listen to her. And Hilara asks her, quite pointedly, why draw him? And Achilles rebuffs her. She takes this chance to warn Achilles, if you lay hands on the Dominus again, she will kill Achilles herself. Understandably, the woman who has been training with sword and shield all day doesn't take her seriously. But Hilara doesn't flinch. She comes back with something even better. Through body language, she glances at the water that Achilles has just been given, and the implication is there that she has delivered poison to this woman. And just a quick second here, because I want to point out my favorite character in the entire episode. It's this man here, this guard. I have no idea what his name is. He has no dialogue. I don't know if he's a freedman or if he's there because he's a slave of some sort. But he just listened to these two women go at each other. He just listened to this house slave talking about poisoning other people, about hawks and mice and hunting and whatnot, and he does nothing. he says nothing. He doesn't intervene. He doesn't report it to the Dominus. He just stands there staring into the distance. He radiates the energy of, this is not my problem. I don't get paid enough for this. And all I want to say is I hope this man survives the series. This man should be protected at all costs. I respect a man who minds his own business. But why does it matter? You see, this scene completes a picture of how power actually works in this world. We've already seen Caesar humiliate Asher through political rank. We've already seen gladiators challenge each other for position and utilizing their strength and skill to put them on the sands. And here we're seeing a house slave, the lowest person in the ludus, without any real agency, credibly threatened a trained fighter. Not with her strength, not with a weapon, but with access. You see, Hilara prepares food. She pours wine. She's invisible in a way that all of the house servants are, which means she can be everywhere and nobody will ever be watching her. And here is where it gets kind of interesting. We don't actually know what is driving Hilara. The surface read is adoration. The surface read is loyalty, or perhaps she's in love with Asher. Aquilia put her hands on him, and it is personal for her, but there might be something deeper being seated. If we think about what Aquilia represents structurally, the ludus has a clean hierarchy. The dominus, the domina, the doctore, the house guards, the gladiators, and then the house slaves. Everyone knows their rank. Everybody knows who they have to kneel to, who they have to obey. And Hilara is effectively acting as matron of the house. She's not his wife. She doesn't have the actual title, but she holds everything together. She has a standing. She has the ability to sway the dominus's desires and activities. Now, a female gladiator has just entered the picture, a new category that nobody knows how to rank, nobody knows how to evaluate. Right now, Aquilia is below everyone else. She's untrained. She's unmarked by the Brotherhood, and she is sleeping in a cell. But what if she rises? What if every minute in the Ludius, she gets stronger, she gets more skilled, and she is able to achieve success on the sands? She becomes the most valuable asset of the house, the face of Asher's ambitions. A woman who owns glory the same way that Hilara freshens the linens or pours the drinks. You see, she doesn't need to see Asher's eyes wondering to know where that road goes. The Dominus's bed, who they please. If there's one thing that Batiatus was great at in the first season, it was taking whoever he wanted, whoever he was able to, given their rank. And there's no reason to expect that the same thing won't hold true with Asher. A female champion creates a new caste in the Ludus. And Aquilia's rank rises. Hilara's falls. This is the quiet math of who matters and who doesn't. So the poisoned water may not simply be, I'll kill you if I touch the Dominus again. It might be, I'll kill you before you can become something that I cannot compete with. And that might be even more dangerous, because people with position, people who scheme, they can be negotiated with. Someone who sees their entire world shifting beneath their feet, they don't have the time to negotiate. They just act. And that could be successful, that could be chaotic, but it will bring change. The show hasn't established what her pure motivation is, and it doesn't really need to. The ambiguity doesn't add to confusion, it adds to the richness of the storytelling. Every possible motivation is on the table right now. So when we take a step back and we look at what this episode has given you so far, every level of the house is reacting to the same disruption, Aquilia's presence. And every reaction reveals what that particular person is actually afraid of losing. My favorite scene in the entire episode might not be one you expect. It is just two men sitting in the bath, arguing with one another. You see, Chorus, after returning from the Appian Way, is agitated. Both the men are restless. Aquilia's presence is destabilizing to the Ludus. They can't even eat without falling into argument. Asher tells him to get into the bath and calm down. What follows is a masterclass in how to write a disagreement between two people who are on the side but see things differently. You see, I stated earlier, Chorus represents tradition. He believes that a gladiator's place is on the sands, and that sand and blood is sacred. In his eyes, a woman does not belong there. Not because he hates women, but because the arena has rules that have worked for generations. The Roman population has expectations about traditions on the sands. So when he says Aquilia doesn't belong on sacred ground, he means it in a way that a craftsman means it when they say or when someone proposes making a change to the established process. Asher counters his points with the Retiarius, a net and trident fighter. And when that style was first introduced, everyone laughed. But he points out that now not a single fight in the arena takes place without a trident fighter. He states that a tradition is a novelty that is aged to maturity. And that's not just a clever line, that's Asher's entire philosophy. He doesn't see tradition as this wall that you can't climb over. He sees it as something that hasn't been disrupted yet. He sees tradition as something that is ever expanding. And this is what makes the scene work mechanically. Neither man is wrong. Chorus is correct that Achilles' presence is causing real problems. He is correct that this may not go over well with the crowd in the arena. The men are destabilized. She has not earned her place. The brotherhood matters. But Asher is also correct that the house is not receiving equal footing, that they need something of a novelty, something that disrupts the expectations of the crowd, or they will all die in obscurity. So what happens next? Well, usually Hollywood would be done right here. But Asher does something incredibly pragmatic. He doesn't lecture Chorus. He doesn't tell the men that they need to be better. He doesn't slight them for their animosities. He says, buy them wine. Buy them whores. Soothe their wounded pride. Give them something that they'll tolerate. Give them something that they can expect more of if they accept her presence. It is definitely not somebody's first move, but it is real leadership. He did not give them ideology. He did not give them speeches. He read the room. He identified the pressure points and the leverages, and he applied the correct amount of torque and grease. If he did learn one thing from Batiatus, it was that Alanista manages the ego of the men around him and the fighters underneath of him. Asher learned from the best. And even if what he learned was manipulation, he knows how to utilize it well. If the scene with Hilara is the most underrated scene in the episode, and the scene in the bath is my favorite, probably the most important scene in this episode involves the dinner with Gabinius. You see, Gabinius invites Asher to his villa to make up for slight rendered by his wife Cossutia. In the first episode, Cossutia orchestrated his humiliation and the death of his champion Logos. Walking into her house is walking into enemy territory, and even Chorus understands this. But you see, Asher needs this invitation. Caesar himself told him that Gabinius hosts the Ludi Apollinaris, the games where Asher wants his rematch against the brothers Ferox. Gabinius controls the door, and that door has been closed to Asher and his house. And this is where the episode becomes something truly special. The dinner scene is as important as the bath, but it works in the opposite direction. The bath shows you how Asher manages down, his gladiators, his doctore, his internal politics within the ludus. The dinner shows you how Asher manages up, or at least how he tries to. Gabinius is warm, he's generous, he's charming. He asks about Asher's family, his background, his education. He is even surprised when Asher reveals how schooled in Roman history he was. That word, our, does the heavy lifting. These are our histories, Syrian. You are a guest here. But here's what I didn't expect. Gabinius isn't just testing Asher. He's genuinely pointing out Asher's blind spots in real time. Gabinius asks about Asher's father. Gabinius notes that the absence of a father robs a boy of proper direction, something that even in 2026 we should all be aware of. He marvels at how Asher found his way from being a slave to being a dominus without any real guidance. And then he says something that sounds like a compliment, but lands as a diagnosis. Let us see you rise upon the legs of knowledge and stride upright as all men in midday of life. He's telling Asher, you are still a baby. You crawled out of the dirt, and you think that makes you one of us. But freedom, it doesn't erase where you came from. Success doesn't make you Roman. The title, the ludus, the patronage of Crassus, none of this has moved you as far as you think. These are real deficiencies, real vulnerabilities, and Gabinius is laying them on the table next to his food and wine. And this is where we really need to sit and ponder on what we're being told. You see, Asher spent his afternoon on the Appian Way, pulling dead men off of crosses. Caesar sent him to do a slave's work. That's external humiliation. It stings. But Asher has been dealing with this type of humiliation since the first series. Asher can endure because the enemy is visible. Caesar's just an asshole. The task is beneath him, but he grits his teeth because the political math requires it. Gabinius is not humiliating Asher. Gabinius is being kind. He's sitting across the table, being warm and generous, saying with genuine concern, you don't know enough to be successful. You don't have the lineage. You don't have the education. You don't have the foundation. Everything you've built is sitting on sand, and you can't see it because nobody ever taught you what the bedrock looks like. That's worse than the Appian Way. That's worse than cleaning corpses, because at least on the Appian Way, Asher could tell himself he was a great man being forced to do small work. At Gabinius' table, a great man is telling him that he's not as great as he thinks he is. But Asher is no fool. He has a correct read on Gabinius, and he throws back the assessment that Gabinius is looking for. He informs him that he is weak, that he is aging and deteriorating, that his wife moves beyond her station. He is able to see Gabinius clearly as other Romans see him. Maybe it's undisciplined, but maybe it's defensive. But he'd rather burn the bridge to prove how intelligent he is than to let it pass. Gabinius does exactly what you would expect him to do. He kicks Asher out of his house. But think about why he did that. He didn't kick him out because Asher was wrong. He kicked him out because Asher was right. And a Syrian freedman has no business being that perceptive about a Roman senator. While all of this is happening at dinner, we meet Viridia, Gabinius' daughter. She, of course, is grieving the death of her husband. Her husband was killed at Sinuessa in Valais during Spartacus' rebellion in I believe it was the War of the Damned. She is, of course, drawn to Asher because he is the man who was credited with killing Spartacus. To her, he's not just the Syrian upstart. He is the man who avenged her husband. There's obviously an attraction there, and the show lets it breathe long enough for us to wonder if things will go well, to wonder how long it will take these two to get together. And then we get probably my favorite individual line in the entire episode. You see,
Father appears in disagreement.
Husband will often stray from reason if not closely attended.
You see, mother and daughter are alone. Viridia is defending Asher, and Cossutia is dismissing him. He is a contamination upon the Republic, upon tradition, someone who would pollute pure waters. And she shifts when she says, husbands will often stray from reason if not closely attended. This line reveals three unique things to us. On the surface, it is a mother counseling a grieving daughter. Life goes on. Men need guidance. It's motherly wisdom. Underneath that, it's Cossutia articulating how Roman women actually exercise their power. She doesn't hold office. She doesn't command armies. She commands her husband. And when he strays from reason, from her preferred course of action, she attends to him. She corrects the drift. Gabinius may be the senator, but Cossutia orchestrated Logos's humiliation. She's the architect. He's the signature on the document. And on the third level, it's a thesis statement for the political subplot. The show is telling you who the actual threat is in that household. It's not the senator who smiles and mentors people over dinner. It's his wife, who understands that power flows through relationships and not titles. Now, we get to sit here with what this episode has shown us about women and power. Cossutia operates through her husband's authority. Halara operates through access and invisibility. Neither one of them throws a punch. Neither one of them needs to. They've found the weapons their positions actually give them, and both are presented as genuinely threatening. Remember that, because we're about to talk about the one scene where the show forgets everything and almost destroyed itself. You see, two drunk gladiators stumble out of the ludus. Creticus and Ephesius find Aquileia alone at night, training on the wooden man. They taunt her. It escalates toward assault. Aquileia fights back. So far, this is working. It's exactly the kind of test you would expect in this world. Men who resent her presence, emboldened by wine and opportunity, trying to put her in what they believe is her place. In the process of overcoming the two men, she attacks Creticus and rips off his salami and meatballs with her bare hands. And this was the part where I almost checked out. You see, it's not about squeamishness. This show is based on Spartacus. I've watched heads split open. I've watched The Pit. I've watched men crucified. I've watched Crixus take a sword through the shoulder and keep fighting. I've watched a man castrated in the first series. Violence is the vocabulary, and I'm fluent. But the problem is mechanical. You see, first, no human being is doing doing that with their bare hands. That's not how bodies work. Spartacus has always been stylized. It's always been stylized within a framework of physical plausibility. Swords cut, spears pierce, fists break bones. The show's violence has always respected the basic physics of what bodies can do to other bodies. This broke that contract. And remember, Aquileia is untrained at this point. She hasn't earned the mark of the Brotherhood. The show hasn't established her as having the physicality to do this, because the whole premise is that she's learning. They even make a point earlier in the episode to point out that the ludus hasn't had real meat in as long as they can remember. Second, the framing. You see, the show wanted me to pump my fist. The show wanted me to feel like Aquileia was a badass. And instead, I felt nothing, really. I didn't feel any sympathy for the situation they put her in. I didn't feel any sympathy for the result that befell the man. I didn't even get that involuntary cringe that men always get when they see another man getting racked in the jewels. My body didn't respond because my brain had already filed this under cartoon-like behavior. And when your nervous system checks out of a violent scene, the scene has failed. Compare it to Oberyn in the Game of Thrones. That scene is comical in itself, but everyone cringed. Everyone felt it in their teeth because it obeyed the laws of the world. Here was this giant ogre of a man who just reached in and just cracked open the skull. The buildup was shocking, but it felt like something the man could do. And I just have to wonder, who was this scene for? Like, I understand that there's some misandrists and some radical feminists out there who go, oh yeah, tear off his salami. But most of the women watching this show are probably going to be more along the lines of, why are you killing the muscular, attractive man? Most of the men are going to go, why is he dying here for something stupid? Why not kill him in the arena? And it's not like they couldn't have kept this scene. They could have had Aquileia, stomping his groin. They could have had Aquileia attacking him with a knife or a sword or a hammer. They could have had the men in the arena exacting their own, the men in the ludus exacting their own judgment. They could have had Asher rendering out punishment and achieving the same result without doing what they did. This scene was calibrated for an audience that just simply does not exist. And the worst part is I just felt numb about the whole thing. If the first episode had not built so much credit, and if this second episode had not had so much promise until this point, I would have quit watching right there. Luckily, the show doesn't mess around with this scene. Right after it happens, Chorus, the Doctore, he intervenes, not to save the man, but to enforce order. As he states, only the Dominus decrees life and death within the house. He challenges Aquilia, who is spouting off some crap about her position in the ludus. He's the Doctore. And one of the things we know is that he hasn't really fought in years. He makes short work of her. He disarms her. He disables her. He throws her into columns. And at the last moment, he stays his hand. You see, she was able to give him a paper cut on his cheek nonetheless, but they establish it as something that no one else in the house has ever been able to do. And that earns his respect. Doesn't make him accept her as part of the Brotherhood, but it does show him that she's at least at the starting line. She has the ability to be trained. She has the ability to grow from where she is. And all of the men of the ludus seem to respond to that. If the show had skipped the castration that they achieved and gone straight to this Chorus fight, we'd be talking about one of the best character building sequences in the entire Spartacus franchise. Now, what House of Asher is doing and what it does well in this episode is something that I keep asking Hollywood to do on this channel. Show the work. Bring the receipts. Let the hierarchy mean something. Let disagreements between intelligent people be disagreements between intelligent people. Not arguments where one side is artificially stupid so that the audience knows who to root for. Chorus and Asher disagree about Aquilia. Neither is wrong. Gabinius offers Asher a lesson that he doesn't want to face. And he's not dumb enough to ignore it. Cossutia and Halara both demonstrate how women exercise power, how they attack a world that grants them no authority. Caesar delegates not because he's lazy, but because humiliation is a tool. These are characters operating with intelligence inside systems that constrain their identity. And the show trusts you to see that without explaining it. That's the show that the original Spartacus was. That's the show House of Asher is building. One bad scene does not undo that. And you did do well enough to earn episode 3 from me. Anyway, this is Second Draft. I'll see you next week.
Return to training, you simple fox.